Hello, and welcome to Principles of Macroeconomics, Module 2.3, and we're continuing on with our discussion of unemployment. So as I mentioned in the last video, there's two types of unemployment that we think about when we look at the unemployment rate in an economy. The first is what we call the natural rate of unemployment, and the second is called the cyclical rate of unemployment. The cyclical rate of unemployment is the actual unemployment numbers that we report of what is happening in the economy. So it is actually what we see from labor statistics. Now, the natural rate of unemployment is an estimation that economists use to understand what would be the underlying unemployment rate if we strip away the effects of business cycles. Here you can see on this graphic the difference between the natural rate of unemployment and the cyclical rate of unemployment. As you can see, cyclical unemployment fluctuates based on what's happening with our economy. During recessionary periods, we see spikes in the unemployment rate as people are laid off and production slows down. During recovery periods or boom periods, the cyclical rate of unemployment drops down below the natural rate. So the natural rate of unemployment is that estimation that economists use to see what would be happening in the economy if we took away the recessions and we took away the recovery periods. So there are two factors that affect the natural rate of unemployment. The first are frictional factors, and these are unavoidable. This is simply telling us that it takes a little bit of time for people to match the skills that they have, the wants and desires that they have for a job with the actual jobs that are available in the economy. So sometimes it just takes a little bit of time to match workers with jobs. And again, this is unavoidable, so we're always going to have at least some degree of unemployment because of these frictional factors. The next factor is a structural factor. And this is telling us that there are structural barriers in our labor markets that prevent the number of jobs to match the number of workers that we have. So let's look at a couple of examples here and try to guess, can you decide, is this frictional or is this structural? So here we have a scenario. Jeremy just got his MBA and he's looking for a job in the Boston area. Is this structural or is this frictional unemployment? This would be frictional unemployment because it's simply taking Jeremy a little bit of time to find the right fit for him after he graduated from his MBA program. Now, what about the scenario where the minimum wage rises in New York City to $15 an hour? The typical McDonald's worker is really excited about this, but McDonald's decides to switch people at the counter with terminals so that they no longer need people to be working the counters, but people can simply put in their orders on the terminals. Is this structural or is this frictional? This would be considered structural. So this is a technological advancement that takes away people from those jobs. They are no longer needed, and their labor is replaced by machines. Now, what about Sarah? Just got laid off from her position in a publishing house, and she's deciding to make a career change, and she's trying to switch jobs. Frictional or structural? This would be considered frictional because she's in between jobs, trying to find the next move for her, maybe change her career path. So this is just the natural little bit of tension, little bit of friction that happens in the labor market. So now what causes structural frictions, structural factors that affect the unemployment rate? Well, one of the ones that we had just mentioned would be technological advancements. The automation of jobs takes away jobs that previously were conducted by workers, and now they're done by machines. Another structural factor would be the unemployment insurance. Unemployment insurance creates a barrier in the labor market so that people stay unemployed for longer than they would if they didn't have this safety net. Now, of course, the social benefits associated with unemployment insurance may be high, and people may be in favor of this. But economically speaking, they do create some type of barrier in the labor market, preventing people from trying to find those jobs and really going out there and being active searchers for jobs. The next is minimum wage laws. Minimum wage artificially pushes the wage of a job, specifically low-skilled jobs, up so that the supply of jobs and the demand for those jobs does not match. In other words, the number of workers that want to work jobs at the minimum wage is going to be greater than the number of jobs available at the minimum wage. So therefore, this is going to cause a surplus of labor or unemployment. Next, unions and collective bargaining also tend to create structural barriers in our labor market. Because of collective bargaining and the power of unions, again, just like minimum wage laws, they push up the wage of workers artificially high so that the number of jobs and the number of workers at that wage does not match, creating unemployment. And lastly, efficiency wages. Efficiency wages are the fact that some firms elect to pay their workers above what we would call the equilibrium wage. They want to do this to retain their workers, to attract high quality, high skilled workers, and to also minimize worker turnover. So in this scenario, the firm elects to pay more than the equilibrium wage. So what have we learned so far in this segment? Well, unemployment is part of our economy, and in many ways it is inevitable because we have frictional and structural barriers in place. So therefore, we're always going to have at least a little bit of unemployment happening in the economy. The difference between the reported unemployment rate or cyclical unemployment and the natural rate of unemployment comes from the fact that one is reported, cyclical unemployment, and it is part of what we see in the economy because of the business cycles that we experience. Whereas the natural rate of unemployment is estimated and it reflects structural and frictional factors as part of the labor market. Thanks very much for joining me for this segment, Module 2.3 on unemployment.